didn't present one, and I wanted to present one here today, but I didn't know what I was going to do. So I'm currently at the tail end of my workday here, and I wanted to share something with you as you know, as I come to the end of a day that is known as World Pandemonium Day. Okay. And it's the idea of like, chaos and all that stuff. And I decided today that I was going to do a live training, a workshop, an hour-long workshop on email management, how to handle your email with ease. And for the most part, I thought it went pretty well. I mean, I have an email workflow that I use called 3Mail, and I shared that with those that were in attendance. And if you were in attendance, thank you so much for taking the time. I will probably do another one at some point. And if you're a member of my Time Crafting Trust community, then you have access to the recording and anything that comes from that. But as much as I thought it went pretty well, there was a lot of takeaways for me. And the biggest one was that email is broken. And it's not the apps and it's not anything but user error, and it has a lot to do with expectations, because that's really what it boils down to. You see, email management isn't about inbox zero. It's not. That's become kind of a badge of honor. It's inbox zero is kind of the new I only get 4 hours of sleep per night to be productive, because it's a poor measuring stick. Now, I'm not suggesting you shouldn't strive to get your email inbox under control. But remember, the idea behind Inbox Zero wasn't to get your email to zero. It was to go into your email application without concern of, I wonder what I left behind in my email inbox that I'm unsure of. Like, that's what it boiled down to, right? And that's not what's happened. It's become, if I get my email inbox to zero when I leave my email application, that's productive. And that causes, it's more about checking off as many boxes as possible as opposed to checking off the right boxes. So when I walk through 3Mail, I talk about the obviously the main folder, which is the main area, which is your inbox, which is basically a giant mystery, a puzzle. Then there's your perpetual folders, which are like the days of the week. I use that as an example in 3Mail. And then there's the precision folders, which are based on things that will perish at some point, like a project or maybe a client you're working with or what have you. But here's the thing: is as I went through the workshop, one of the things that came to mind was that we are so ingrained with how we deal with email that to break the biases that we have about it is going to be a real challenge for anyone, including someone like me and Cal Newport, who I've interviewed before. And maybe I'll put a link to the recording of our podcast episode, because his book, A World Without Email, takes this on too. I don't know if that's a challenge I think it's a harder challenge to take on than the challenge of, you know, personal productivity, time management, to-do lists, all that stuff. I think that email management is hard because it's not about the messages. It's not about the content. It's more about the context and the expectations around it. So people are focused on getting their emails to zero, or they're responding quickly and they're not realizing maybe they should have had a more thoughtful response, or because there's this belief that, oh, someone sent me an email, so I should get back to them right away. There's all these things that we're taking into account instead of taking into account, should I be outgoing mail in a more clear fashion so that people don't have as many questions about the email as they would otherwise. I think that thoughtful approach to email is something that we need. And it starts with boundaries and expectations. If someone emails you at late at night and you respond, or they email you and you respond to them at 9:30 at night, what that email says isn't just what's inside the email. It says, "Hey, I answer email at 9:30. I check email at 9:30. So feel free rather to email me at 9:30." I don't think that's the message you want to send, but that's the message that ends up being sent. And everything sounds kind of like an emergency. You can hear the sirens in the background right now. Every email gets treated like it's urgent, like it's an emergency, and that's not the case. So, one thing you can do to kind of, unbreak your email inbox is stop listening to the sirens. Stop listening to the noise and say to yourself, okay, look, is this email super urgent? And you don't need to do it necessarily with every single email. But you could hear there's a bunch of different sirens going on right now. That's a lot of noise, and you're trying to filter through that. You might even be trying to filter through that right now while you listen to me, right? But if you were to pick one respondent, that you feel like you could get away with saying, hey, you know what? I'm not going to respond to them right away and see what happens. Or you respond to them the next day. That could be a big head start for you. So, kind of breaking the biases around your email workflow, I think, is something that we can all try in one way, shape, or form. Whether it's, again, isolating the noise so that you're actually dealing with the emails you know you need to deal with, and that's 3Mail does that, right? Or whether it's, you know what, I'm going to use send later functions so that if I check email later at night, I want to make sure it doesn't go until the next morning. Or I'm going to pick one person. I'm just going to wait and see what happens if I don't respond to them right away. Or I'm going to start using different tools for instant messaging instead of email because that's not what email's for. Start to break some of those habits bit by bit. Bit by bit productivity. That's the key. That's what I think you need to do. That's what I know you need to do if you want to get your email under control. I don't care what app you use. I don't care whether it's home email or not. Email is a lot of noise. And the problem with it is that that noise keeps you from focusing on what you should be focusing on. And so, as long as you have a clear message and a clear understanding, and that's the key, the understanding of how you want your email to flow, how you want your work to flow, how you want your data flow, all that stuff, once you have that sorted, then that noise fades into the background. It was almost too perfect. So, email's broken, but it can be fixed. Anything like this can be fixed, but it's up to the users. And I'm not just talking about you, I'm talking to the people around you, but it has to start somewhere, and that starts with you. So start, if you want to learn more about 3Mail, just drop me a link in the comments or drop me a message in the comments and I'll send you some information. Because as much as this is going to be a big challenge and maybe not one I totally want to take on, I know that it's something that needs to happen. More people need to be aware of how they can get their email under control, how they can have a greater command over it, because it seems like it's an endless flow. And I know Cal Newport's taking this on with a world without email. I think that there's some more room at the end for me to help out as well. So thanks for taking the time to watch this live. I know this was a rather impromptu one, but this was just a thought that had been kind of noodling in my head and lingering with me as I finished up that workshop today. And so I'm gonna wrap things up now. But this has been great. I'm glad that I've had a few people in here watching. I think we're just going to call it a day at this point. Oh, there we go. Hold on a second. Forget how to do this on the phone. But there you go. Start working through your email habits a little bit clear. Get a bit clearer with it. You're going to be in much better shape if you do. Because let's face it, email is one of those significant 6 areas when it comes to productivity. You can't avoid email. You got to control the flow. And the only way you can control things is if you better understand them. So start there. I'll see you later.